For 42 years, Lewis and Benjamin Jones slept side by side in their parents' bed at their farm, which was known as The Vision. The bedstead, an oak four-poster, came from their mother's home at Bryn Drynnog when she married in 1899. Its faded cretonne hangings, printed with the design of larkspur and roses, shut out the mosquitoes of summer and the draughts in winter. Calloused heels had worn holes in the linen sheets, and parts of the patchwork quilt had frayed. Under the goose-feather mattress there was a second mattress of horsehair, and this had sunk into 2 troughs, leaving a ridge between the sleepers. The room was always dark and smelled of lavender and mothballs. The smell of mothballs came from a pyramid of hat boxes piled up beside the washstand. On the bed table lay a pincushion, still stuck with Mrs. Jones's hat pins, and on the end wall hung an engraving of Holman Hunt's Light of the World, enclosed in an ebonized frame. One of the windows looked out over the green fields of England, the other looked back into Wales, past a clump of larches at the Black Hill. Both the brothers' hair was even whiter than the pillowcases. Every morning their alarm went off at 6. They listened to the farmer's broadcast as they shaved and dressed. Downstairs they tapped the barometer, lit the fire, and boiled a kettle for tea. Then they did the milking and foddering before coming back for breakfast. The house had rough-cast walls and a roof of mossy stone tiles, and stood at the far end of the farmyard in the shade of an old Scots pine. Below the cowshed there was an orchard of wind-stunted apple trees, and then the field slanted down to the dingle, and there were birches and alders along the stream. Long ago the place had been called Ty Craddock, and Caractacus is still a name in these parts. But in 1737 an ailing girl called Alice Morgan saw the Virgin hovering over a patch of rhubarb, and ran back to the kitchen, cured. To celebrate the miracle, her father renamed his farm The Vision, and carved the initials A.M., with the date and a cross on the lintel above the porch. The border of Radnor and Hereford was said to run right through the middle of the staircase. The brothers were identical twins. As boys, only their mother could tell them apart. Now age and accidents had weathered them in different ways. Lewis was tall and stringy, with shoulders set square and a steady, long-limbed stride. Even at 80, he could walk over the hills all day, or wield an axe all day and not get tired. He gave off a strong smell. His eyes, grey, dreamy, and astigmatic, were set well back into the skull, and capped with thick round lenses in white metal frames. He bore the scar of a cycling accident on his nose, and ever since its tip had curved downwards and turned purple in cold weather. His head would wobble as he spoke. Unless he was fumbling with his watch chain, he had no idea what to do with his hands. In company he always wore a puzzled look, and if anyone made a statement of fact, he'd say, "Thank you," or "Very kind of you." Everyone agreed he had a wonderful way with sheepdogs. Benjamin was shorter, pinker, neater, and sharper-tongued. His chin fell into his neck, but he still possessed the full stretch of his nose, which he would use in conversation as a weapon. He had less hair. He did all the cooking, the darning, and the ironing, and he kept the accounts. No one could be fiercer in a haggle over stock prices, and he would go on arguing for hours until the dealer threw up his hands and said, "Come off, you old skinflint," and he'd smile and say, "What can you mean by that?" For miles around, the twins had the reputation of being incredibly stingy, but this was not always so. They refused, for example, to make a penny out of hay. Hay, they said, was God's gift to the farmer, and providing the Vision had hay to spare, their poorer neighbours were welcome to what they needed. Even in the foul days of January, old Miss Fifield the Tump had only to send a message with the postman, and Lewis would drive the tractor over with a load of bales.